Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Karen Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 City Council meeting of December the 13th, 2017. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith.
I am here.
Councilmember Rivera. Here. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Parley.
Here.
Thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here to engage in the civic process. I think we have some students here from CSUB, from BC. Would you, CSUB, Bakersfield College, and then we have our Boy Scout troop. So welcome. We're really glad to have you here. It's always good to have our young people engage with us. Captain Kevin Polk, are you in the audience? Captain Pope was scheduled to lead us in the pledge from the Salvation Army, but it doesn't look like he is here. So I'll probably do that myself. Following the invocation, we have the privilege of having Coco Chapman, who is an 8th grade student who's homeschooled through Laurel Springs Online Private School, and she's going to lead us in the pledge. Coco is a very special person. She's a young piano composer, and since the age of 5, she's been invited to perform her original piano compositions and improvisations at the Music Teacher Association of California annual convention. She's received the prestigious Catherine Earhart Award 4 years in a row, which is given to students who achieve a perfect score in the music theory portion of the annual statewide Certificate of Merit exam. Not an easy thing to accomplish. She loves math, and as a 12-year-old, she's already taking pre-calculus. She's passionate about ice skating, and she competed in the 2017 Ice Skating Institute World Championship and brought home 2 second-place medals. So at this time, Captain Polk, have you arrived? No. You would all please stand. I think I'll just lead us in the invocation. Join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, what a privilege it is to be able to gather as a community here and spend time looking out for the good of our community. Thank you for all of those who are here, all of those who are here who really care about our community, and we appreciate that. And we thank you for all of those who are in service. Father, we pray that you would give us your wisdom. Would you give us that wisdom to make the right decisions? And again, we just thank you for this wonderful community. During this holiday season, we just ask your special blessing as families gather together. Would you just give them your joy, your peace, and your love? In your precious name we pray. Amen. Coco?
Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and it's a privilege to have Coco's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Richard Chapman. Thank you so much, Coco, and all the best in your music, your math, and in your ice skating. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. In keeping with council policy, council members aren't allowed to send or receive electronic communications during the meeting. We ask that you be courteous in the use of cameras and video recorders. Applause is allowed during the presentations portion of the meeting, but it isn't allowed at other times of the meeting. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chamber. If you're here to speak on hearing items 9 or 10, now isn't the time to speak. You'll be given an opportunity when those items are called later in the meeting. Thank you so much for your cooperation. So this evening, we have the privilege of saying Mr. Clerk, who's going to read us the first item. And this is his first time, although he actually supervises this department. It's his first time right there running all the controls. So, Mr. Clerk, we're going to give you an extra measure of grace and permission. If something goes wrong, it's not a big deal. So here we go. Mr. Clerk, the first item, please.
Under presentations, item A, presentation of a proclamation to Diana Cisneros, Dustin Contreras, and Sandy Wu, Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking representatives, declaring January 2018 Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Well, welcome. Human trafficking. It's modern-day slavery. It's a market-driven criminal industry that's based on the principles of supply and demand. It's not right. 20 million victims worldwide. But we are so privileged to have groups such as the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and they are there unlocking freedom. Isn't that what you're doing? Unlocking freedom, and doing it through prevention, through protection, through prosecution, and through partnerships. And tonight it is my honor to be able to read the following proclamation, to present this to our fine coalition here. Whereas human trafficking has become a modern-day version of slavery that exploits victims through coercion, forcing them to perform services for profit, including but not limited to commercial sex acts and various exploitation of labor. And whereas it's estimated that more than 20 million people, men, women, and children in all corners of the globe are victims of this deplorable practice, and the total number of victims in this country is projected to be into the hundreds of thousands. And whereas in 2015 alone, an estimated 1 out of 5 endangered runaways reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children were likely child sex trafficking victims. And whereas victims are isolated in order to hide the crime, and local citizens are largely unaware of the trafficking taking place in the community, and human trafficking exists and is prevalent in the Central Valley. Whereas Human Trafficking Awareness Month highlights the plight of victims and encourages our citizens to be vigilant and report instances of human trafficking or suspected trafficking. Now, therefore, I, Karen Kago, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim January 2017 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in our city, and we call upon all of our citizens to support the obliteration of this dreadful, unacceptable crime in our community and around the world. And so it is my honor. I wish we didn't have to do this, but we are so grateful for groups such as yours, and it's my honor to be able to present this to you. Would you come forward? And thank you so much. Thank you. And who is going to be our speaker?
Oh,
That would be you. Okay, so stay up here. You go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Just to give you a history on what we call KCAT, Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking, started in 2012 with a small group of victim service providers and some law enforcement. Since then, it has grown to about 50+ different non-government organizations as well as government organizations throughout the county and throughout the state. We have seen a gamut of the types of victims that we've had in Kern County. I've spoke individually to some of you, and some of you have attended some of our events that we've had, and in that you've seen the different types of crimes that have occurred out of this. We've gone from the quintessential about trafficking that you would normally talk about, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and it has, with awareness, we have also seen more types of victims come out, whether it's sex slavery, within our children and within our at-risk youth here in Kern County, but as well as gone to such extremes as organ trafficking. And when I mean organ, I mean human organs. So again, I want to say thank you. We'll continue our grassroots fight to end human trafficking in Kern County as well as the state. So thank you again, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Should we take a picture together? You know, our city has a very special relationship with KCAT, and we're about to have an even closer relationship very soon with Sandy Wu, one of the members, marrying Jason Cater, who's in the audience. Jason works for our city planning and economic development, and so congratulations on your upcoming wedding, and we're going to be even closer together. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
A second here. Public statements. Mr. Clerk, next item.
Mayor Go, we received 7 speaker cards on separate subjects. The first speaker is Ronnie Cruz regarding award from Feed It Forward.
Hi, I'm the founder of Feed It Forward, and we've been doing this for 16 years, and I would like to present an award to Willie Rivera and Jackie Sullivan. Thank you for all your help in making this event possible. Here they are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz. Next speaker, please.
Terry Maxwell regarding items 6C1 and 8AQ3.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mary Go, and thank you, council members. My name is Terry Maxwell. I wanted to make a comment on item number 6C, and that is the appropriation of $54,000 for a study to see if the citizens of Bakersfield are interested in having their sales tax increased. I think that all you have to do is think about next November, when on the ballot there's also going to be the possibility of withdrawing that 12 cents per gallon tax that the state of California has put on us. And I would say that that's going to overwhelmingly be approved. I think this is just the wrong time to be doing this. I agree with Councilmember Rivera. You know, a sign of leadership is doing things that are tough without putting your finger in the air and trying to figure out what's popular and spending $54,000 when you're already in a budget crunch. You know, the last time I ran, you know, I was told what leadership really is. And leadership is not taking that track. True leadership is putting everything on the table and figuring it out. If you can't figure it out after everything's on the table, then come back to us, and maybe, you know, the citizens would have more of an appetite. But as long as you haven't really looked at as many possibilities as there are available, then I think you're going the wrong way. Second of all, in item number 8AQ, you're going to appropriate $630,000 of county local TRIP funds for the West Park Local Streets Improvement Projects. And that is coming out of the TRIP local match, primarily out of the county funds. Now, to my knowledge, when I was on the council, the county funds had already been appropriated for 24th Street. So I'm wondering how you're spending $630,000 on something that has already been budgeted for something else. And I know that at this point, you've already spent $5 million out of that budget on Centennial Corridor. So you're now down to less than $19 million to build 24th Street if that ever occurs. So that might be something you want to look at. And the last thing I wanted to say is you have 53 items on your consent calendar. And as a person that might want to have comments on other ones, 3 minutes is a ridiculous amount of time to give somebody. Either have more meetings or have fewer things on your consent calendar. I think it would work out better for everybody because, you know, we all want to make some comments about what's going on in our city, and when we only have 3 minutes to do it, and there's 53 items on consent calendar, and this is the only time we can make a comment, I think it's a little unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Next speaker, please.
Marvin Dean regarding Charles Manson and police chief gang arrests.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Dean. I'm here to speak on let me say this quickly. When I announced that I was a candidate for the First Ward City Council, I mentioned here that I would come before this council and speak on issues that affect the First Ward or some of the folks in the First Ward that asked me to speak on. So I'm here to speak on 2 issues tonight. One is, there was an article in the newspaper today about the gang takedown headed up by Chief Lau, and I want to say I commend you for that as a citizen of Bakersfield, and your comments were very balanced, that if you want to get out of that lifestyle, there's some things to help you, but if you're not going to get out of that lifestyle, we should have a zero tolerance for gang violence in this community. And so that multi-task force took down a bunch of people in this community that was doing some things that was wrecking this community, so I, for one, commend you for doing that, and then I'll do anything I can to support that. The second item I'm here to speak on, I wasn't aware of this Charles Manson issue till some of my community people called me and asked me to weigh in on that in their behalf. And I sent a letter to you all back on the 30th to the mayor and also the council that we should weigh in on that we do not want that criminal, and I don't speak ill of people that have gone home, passed on, but we do not want that element in our community. And so I did get a response from the city manager staff, and I commend you for that. And I also talked to the coroner's office, and they haven't made a decision, but I think we as a community ought to weigh in on it. Because I'm told that once the decision is made, if nobody claims the body, it's going to go to the correctional folks, and then they're going to make a decision whether to bury him. And I thought, well, the correctional facility is not in Kern County, it was in King County. Why did they take him to King County instead of Kern County? And it's a possibility, even though a decision has not been made, that he may end up here. And I think we ought to weigh in as a community. We speak ill of no one, but we don't want his followers to come in our community. And the reason why I raised the issue because my mother and my father and my grandparents are buried out there, and I hope to be buried out there one day. So we just do not want that element in our community. The last thing I want to say is there has been a change of the potential candidate, the councilman running, and I'm going to say this, and I spoke to him privately, that I'm going to run a gentleman's campaign, and it's not going to be about issues, and I'm a little too far ahead of the game to pull out now. But if I'd have known earlier, I wouldn't have been in this predicament because I like Willie and I think he's been doing a good job. But I'm so far out there now that I've got to see it through. And it will be on issues. We'll not get into negative and all that kind of stuff. And the better man will be the victor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Next speaker, please.
Wendell Wesley Jr. regarding Charles Manson.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Wendell Wesley Jr. Dear council member, people are uncomfortable. People are angry. People are upset. Why? Because having a mass murderer, serial killer, neo-Nazi racist buried in the same cemetery as our loved ones, friends and family members, is a very disgraceful and undignified. And this is coming from someone who has no vested interest here, only because I'm not from here. But when I first heard about this, I had to ask myself, would I want this vile, reprehensible person buried next to my family members, friends, or loved ones? Then I wanted to know what other people thought. So I began to ask my coworkers, my customers, my friends, and other random people I did not know. Only one person didn't care. But I say the people of Bakersfield care, and it does matter. Why? The history and the legacy of Bakersfield deserves better. This town was founded by the Bakers, hardworking Christians. This is also home to Music Hall of Famer legend Buck Owens, and NFL Hall of Famer Frank Gifford, and many, many more. Just this morning, I was watching ABC Channel 23 News. They were talking about what will the legacy of Bakersfield be. Our legacy is with good Christians, Hall of Famers, and we do not want it tarnished or disgraced in any way. Please do not open the door to vile, disgraceful neo-Nazi racists, serial killers, murderers, and the likes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesley. Next speaker, please.
Paul Braley regarding Centennial Corridor. Excuse me, Robert Braley.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Robert Braley, and I'm here to discuss the Centennial Corridor project costs. Since this project was first proposed about 8 years ago, the original cost of the project was stated to be $436 million for construction only. This cost included contributions from TRIP of $121 million, the county $57 million, Kern COG $5 million, and the city $253 million, but the city stated they needed a loan at the time of $270, but asked the court to approve a loan of $290 million. However, the county only contributed $40 million, which is now being used for the 24th Street project and not Centennial. That makes the city's portion now $310 million, which Mr. Tandy has never addressed. Mr. Tandy has repeatedly stated that he has been able to reduce the original loan needed from $270 to $135 million due to work already done in grants and other sources of funding. But as far as I know, he has not identified any of these other funding sources or the amounts of each. If that is the case, he has been able to reduce the loan by an astonishing $135 million. Mr. Tandy has been using these figures for nearly 8 years with no adjustments for inflation or other costs. The cost index for non-residential construction has averaged 3.5% since 2008, including the lean years, but the increase has been 8% in the most recent good years. Using simple fifth-grade math, 3.5% compounded, the total likely cost right now has increased to $574 million. Given the limits and reductions in contributions, the city should now be on the hook for $448 million, not the original $253. This is a cosmic increase of $313 million over what Mr. Tandy now says he needs for a loan. The numbers given by Mr. Tandy and the city are just not believable. It is time that the City Council asked city staff to properly discuss the current costs of this project and what inflation and other costs have had an impact on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braley. Next speaker, please.
Paul Desai regarding Ming and Weibel Business Development Proposal.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Paul Desai. I'm with the RP Golden State Management, LLC. We are involved in a project at the Ming and Weibel Road. And here I am today to in place the motion to consider in benefits of public interest and also for City of Bakersfield, California, where we can mutually enhance the interchange and kind of bring more revenue, plus kind of enhance the public safety in that area, as well, create a win-win situation where we can employ more people. The particular interchange has been loaded with a lot of important businesses, which reflects the city ambience, integrity, and what we have over there. We recently repositioned, after a couple of $1 million renovations, for the old former Garden Suite Hotel behind, in connection with the mall, and in connection with IMAX and Valley Plaza Mall, where we kind of neighbor to that. So here we feel, because there is some deficiencies at the interchange, and my proposal and a motion to consider for neighborhood and interchange redevelopment, suggestions and ideas of improvements suggested by neighbor businesses owners around the Ming and Weibel interchange in Bakersfield. I herewith read the submissions, and I would like to pass on these proposals and submission to the council here.
And you can give those
I can leave
to
it right
the
here.
clerk,
Yes.
please.
Yes, right here.
Mayor?
Okay, all right. Okay, on behalf of the people of City Bakersfield and businesses that benefits for following suggested redevelopment suggestions and ideas, I herewith contribute my commitment of initial 10% of $25,000 just to set this motion, and upon approval of the whole complete projects and submission, I'll submit $25,000 total as a donation to the city. My consideration for following simple and common benefiting suggestions and ideas for further development, if considered and approved by the city planning commissions and city council members of City of Bakersfield. Following suggestions for consideration for such further approval and implementations are set forth and requested to be considered and approved, which will further assure, first, a public safety, auto vehicle, and people migration and movement around the corridor. As well, it will benefit city for more tax
Mr. Desai,
collections.
your time is up. Can you just bring your statements to a close, please?
It's close?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Further, it will benefit city for more tax collections. And finally, as to provide more employment to the public and people of City of Bakersfield and Kern County. Recently,
Sir, we have to close at this point. Your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, 3
And
minutes?
we will go ahead and receive what you have
well, let
brought
me
forward.
summarize, just 1 minute.
We have 3 minutes each for every
Oh.
person. So I know Councilmember Parlier wanted to address you.
Yes. I can present my,
Paul?
Yes.
Just real quick, and thank you so much for your investment in our community.
Yes.
Thank you again for wanting to donate for the branding efforts. And what we're going to do,
Yes.
I've already talked to city staff with the Community Development Department.
Right.
And they're going to meet with you as soon as you step away and go over some particulars.
Okay.
And also introduced you to Nick Ortiz with the Chamber.
Sure.
And I know you just joined the Chamber too, and that's a great thing.
right, it's kind of a little, proposition is a little bit lengthy. and
Yeah,
I wanted to make first
Yeah,
submission.
no,
to the
thank you again.
City Planning
Thank you so
Department.
much. But
Sure, yeah, my
Community Development
contribution is there,
Department's-
though. Sure.
Yeah, the staff will help you out.
Sure, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
David Lyman regarding official Bakersfield arrival guide.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm David Lyman with Visit Bakersfield. Good evening. It's December. That means a man sporting a white beard with a curl in his mustache and a twinkle in his eye will appear before you to bring tidings of great joy. It's my pleasure this evening to bring you our newest publication, the official Bakersfield Arrival Guide. It's more than 60 pages of fun with things to see and do in California's 9th largest city. It has information on dining, hotel listings, and information on Bakersfield's many annual events and festivals. There's sections on Bakersfield's music, food, sports, arts, museums, and fun things for kids. A new section this year is called Bakersfield Bike Adventures, and it was inserted because of many questions we've had from visitors about where to bicycle when they come to our city. The Arrival Guide is the official destination publication for Bakersfield. It is free, and it is available now at more than 80 locations throughout our city. That's 80. That includes most hotels, RV parks, attractions, the Amtrak station, and our office at 515 Truxtun Avenue. A digital version is available online at visitbakersfield.com by simply clicking the upper right-hand portion of your screen. I hope you will enjoy this official Bakersfield Visitors Guide. Arrival Guide is just one more way we can show that in Bakersfield there really is more to explore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyman, and thanks to your staff for this fine publication.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Under workshops, item A, Sports Village naming rights. Number 1, presentation recognizing Kaiser Permanente as the naming rights sponsor for the Bakersfield Sports Village. Number 2, license and naming rights agreement for the Bakersfield Sports Village.
Thank you. Mr. Tandy.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm a last-minute fill-in. Diane Hoover had a procedure done on a foot. She's going to be fine, but she can't get around. She isn't mobile tonight, and I think she's probably watching it from home, and so I would like to, she's been the staff person assigned to this, to thank Diane very much for her efforts and her work. She was the leader in this effort, and she found a party interested in promoting the good health and welfare, preventative kind of care in the Kaiser Permanente, who was interested in naming rights issue for the Bakersfield Sports Village. The Sports Village is undergoing a transformation as we speak. We're going to have 5 new lighted fields, a tournament field. Probably by spring, a new picnic area will open around a lake, added parking, playground, an additional restroom, and other amenities. And so it's very timely that this comes forward. We have David Womack and Leslie Golich here from Kaiser Permanente.
So I too would like to thank Diane for working with us on getting this agreement across the line, and also Alan. And I also need to thank Mayor Go. Back in May, she spoke with several of our Kaiser Permanente executives from Southern California, and some of those were my bosses who actually had to sign off on this, so that actually did help. And I assume the City Council will unanimously support this, so I want to thank you also. At Kaiser Permanente, our mission is to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. That's a pretty lofty mission, and we know we can't do it alone. Someone famously once said it takes a village, or in this case, a city. And we look for partners to do that. And we have what's developing into a long history with the city of trying to do just that through Operation Splash, which teaches folks how to swim, through providing exercise and nutrition classes at several of the park facilities around town. We've had this deepening relationship, and now we're going into and making this investment in the sports village. And the reason we're doing this is because that we know without a doubt that 2 of the key things to future health is an active lifestyle, which a sports village obviously promotes, but the other thing is social connections. And when you have families coming together and with their kids and having sports events, you're promoting social connections. So that's really aiming at a new aspect of health that we really want to focus on there. So we're really excited about the ability to do this. And we have this large check, literally and figuratively, to present.
Thank you so much. Here. And now we'll need a motion. Councilmember Sullivan, this is in your ward.
Yes, proudly in my ward. Thank you very much. And very appreciated, a very strong benefit for our city, and basically one of the highlights of the state of California. So we're getting better and better. Yes, make a motion to approve.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item B, community-wide branding project. A staff memorandum has been received identifying the companies that have provided funding to date for the community-wide branding project.
Mr. Tandy?
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, sometimes good fortune comes to those who wait. Mayor Go, during the State of the City this year, advocated a branding effort by the community as a desirable goal. City staff had worked on this a couple of years ago, but had not brought it forward to the council because we thought we would have to bear all the costs. Well, now we have a circumstance where a great diversity of business and economic interests within the city and Kern County have come together independently and have put forward the need for this branding effort with a very modest contribution being requested from the city. And with that, if I could have Nick Ortiz from the Chamber come forward, please.
Thanks, Alan and Mayor Go. And I'd also like to invite Joe Renfro from Tejon Ranch up here because they've been an integral part of this effort. So good evening, Mayor Go and members of the council. My name is Nick Ortiz. I'm the CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber. And I'd like to thank city staff for the presentation and teeing this up. And I really give a lot of credit both to Mr. Tandy and Mayor Go for advancing this conversation about a branding effort. Some of you may know that as we reported in our first annual Biz Climate Survey, where we surveyed 40 top employers in Bakersfield and Kern County. Some of the results that we found was that improving the external image of our community, of both the city of Bakersfield and the county of Kern, was an imperative for the business community. The other item that was highlighted was attracting and retaining a highly skilled workforce, and I think as all of you know, those two things go hand in hand. And as Mr. Tandy mentioned, this was also a focus of Mayor Go's first State of the City address in July. So today we're asking that the city partner with the County of Kern and a large consortium of private industry to lead a local brand initiative. And our community is constantly competing with other cities, states, regions, countries, and for talent, resources, businesses. And this initiative will advance our city and county's reputation and brand position. Our community has a great story to tell, as referenced by Mr. Lyman talking about all the great things that are going on in the city of Bakersfield. And this effort will uncover and highlight the attributes that make Kern County and Bakersfield amazing places to live, work, and play. This initiative will result in two distinct but complementary brand identities and strategies, one unique to the city of Bakersfield and one for the county of Kern. And I want to be very clear about this effort and the Chamber's role in it. Our role is to be the fiscal agent and the facilitator, but frankly, this effort depends on the leadership of private industry and the partnership of local government, like the city and the county. This effort will not be any one organization's. It will belong to the community. And we have identified and worked with staff on the third-party consulting group who we will contract with to do this. And they have a great reputation and track record of stakeholder engagement. And we will need as much stakeholder and community involvement from all areas, all constituencies in the city and county as possible. So thank you very much for your time and consideration, and we look forward to working on this effort. And now I'd like to invite up Joe Renfro from Tejon Ranch.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Welcome.
Mayor, council members, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. And to echo what Nick stated and Mr. Tandy teed up this evening, it's a great idea that whose time has come. I think this is a phenomenal opportunity for public-private partnership to collaborate, and as Nick said, you know, this is an item that the private industry needs to step up and lead on. We are glad to be in partnership with both the city and soon to be the county as well in the initiative on something that the community can own. And two distinct outputs of the strategic brand initiatives. One is distinctly city-focused, the other one county. So it is both a city and regional focus in really peeling back, uncovering our DNA, and coming up with a way to cohesively articulate the unique advantages of this great community, of a way that we can continue to try and attract new businesses to this community, as well as assist both public and private industry education in ongoing business recruitment. So we've got more than a dozen companies actively involved, eager and ready to go in this partnership, and want to thank the city for its ongoing cooperation and attention to this matter, and thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Renfro. Mr. Tandy, anything further before we turn it to council members?
Just to thank both the gentlemen who spoke and the list of donors. There was a blue memo on your desk this evening listing a dozen or more community donors, so thanks to all of them.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great opportunity for the community to collaborate and to come together and to have a positive impact on the community together with the business and governmental agencies. So I would make the motion to approve a contribution of $10,000 to the project.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item C, professional polling and public opinion research services. Number 1, agreement with Fairbank, Moslin, Mullen, Metz and Associates, not to exceed $54,750 to conduct polling and public opinion research services. Number 2, appropriate $54,750 in general fund balance to the non-departmental budget within the general fund. A staff memorandum has been received correcting the 5th whereas clause in the attached agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Tandy?
Honorable Mayor and members of City Council, members of City Council asked staff to put together a 5-year budget projection on the city finances. We did that, presented it to Council. For a variety of reasons, it is not as good a circumstance as we have historically had in town. The circumstances include the oil economy. They include shifts in purchasing as a result of increase in internet sales, imposition of cost burdens by the state and CalPERS. And when that presentation was made, the council voted to have staff bring back a contract for consideration on professional polling and public outreach services with respect to gauging opinion on a potential revenue enhancement measure or tax increase. We have done so, and Chris Hewitt is going to make a presentation about that effort.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. Chris Hewitt, City Manager's Office. I'm going to wait here for the screen to come down, get started. As Mr. Tandy mentioned, I'm here tonight to briefly provide you with an overview of the item that is before you. As Mr. Tandy mentioned, back in October, the council did direct staff to bring back an agreement for polling services for consideration. That's what's before you this evening. And I'll get into the detail of that agreement in just a moment. Polling services are very common among cities and other government agencies in California when they're considering any type of revenue measure. Does a variety of different things. It provides objective analysis to you, the elected officials and staff, in evaluating the viability of passing a local ballot measure. It identifies community priorities, and you gain important feedback on the perceptions of city operations. So it really is multifaceted. Polling work is the first step, as we discussed last time, to determining if placing a measure on the ballot is feasible. It in no way obligates the City Council to do so. So again, we went out and issued a request for proposal to, I believe, 11 firms that do this work in the state of California. We received 3 proposals back. At the end of the evaluation, the firm of Fairbank, Moslin, Metz and Associates, or FM3, was selected unanimously as the firm that was most responsive to the city's request for proposal. They are considered the industry leader in conducting voter research. They serve as the League of California Cities' primary opinion research firm. They have worked with over 140 cities on multiple hundreds, of revenue measures. They know the city and the region well. In November of 16, they were involved in several different local revenue measures with government agencies and included 3 bond measures, 3 large bond measures with different school districts, including the Community College District, Bakersfield City, and the Kern High School District. They were also involved in voter research and polling with the city of Delano and city of Wasco in regards to sales tax measures in those communities. FM3 in the last 10 years has performed research for 22 voter-approved city finance measures throughout the valley. That includes Stockton and Visalia with different sales tax measures in those communities. They also have experience working with large metropolitan cities, including San Jose and Long Beach, among many others. They are well versed and experienced in doing this type of outreach and research. A little bit about the scope of work that's included in the proposal that is in your packet. It would be multi-staged and multi-stepped. First starts out with essentially a questionnaire design and working with city staff to design that questionnaire that would ultimately go out to the public. That includes, and in the proposal that's attached in your packet, includes many different questions and the types of questions that are included. I just listed a few for the sake of this presentation, but it talks about potentially the need for additional funding to provide levels of service that the residents have come to expect. As we've talked about previously, it would address the level of support for a sales tax measure, potentially at different amounts, and then it would also look to test specific potential ballot measure language as well. As proposed, and what staff is recommending is a survey be done of 800 registered voters through a variety of different methods that FM3 utilizes, including web-based landline and cell phone surveys for about 20 minutes per registered voter. The phone component of it would be done in English and Spanish depending on the individual's preference. Essentially what it would do, the numbers would be, it would be a statistically valid survey, and it would be representative of the city's likely voter population in the November 18 election, both by demographics and by ward. There's a significant amount of data analysis that's done once all the information is compiled, and that's part of the scope of work, and I'll get to that in just a minute. We're also proposing as part of this agreement to conduct 2 focus groups of likely November 2018 voters. This would be a group of 2 groups of 10 to 12 participants, about 2 hours in length. If you're familiar with focus groups, this essentially takes the surveys, the questions, and allows for open-ended discussions, and it helps provide, again, the elected officials and staff with a more in-depth understanding of the prospective voters and thinking and perceptions of the city. Again, as I mentioned, there are a significant amount of presentation or reports and deliverables that would be provided under this agreement. There would be a presentation to the City Council. There would be, again, a summary of key findings, detailed findings, conclusions, and recommendations. And then all the data that is collected would be turned over to the city as well for use and review. A timeline that was included in the proposal, it does meet the timeline that staff was requesting, which would be essentially to bring back that final report in March of 2018 so that the council could consider that data at that time and then decide whether or not to move any further with a potential tax measure for November of 18. Within that time period, the surveys would be done most likely after the holidays, as well as the focus groups. The data computations would also be done in this time, so they can meet our timeline that staff was requesting. So moving forward, as Mr. Tandy mentioned, and to summarize, we know that we are facing challenges in the coming years, and as we've covered, assuming lagging revenue growth and expenditures and cost increases that we're seeing, we do believe that something will need to be done, whether that is, again, revenue enhancement or expenditure reductions. So at this point, we believe that a voter survey and focus groups will assist the city council and staff, again, in better understanding what the priorities are of the community, expectations, and again, the viability of a potential tax measure. So at this point, staff is recommending 2 actions this evening: the approval of the agreement with FM3 to go ahead and move forward with the work, as well as approval of funding appropriation for the agreement. Mr. Fairbank, John Fairbank, a principal with FM3, is here this evening if you have any technical questions in regards to the work that's outlined in the scope. Myself and others from city staff are here to answer any of the questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Mr. Tandy, anything else before we go back to council? Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is an important step. We've talked about it a lot. It kind of ties in with the last presentation from the chamber and the branding of Bakersfield. We want to have a good brand. We want to be able to attract and retain a good workforce, and in order to do that, we have to provide good services. And it is clear that we have financial problems coming in the future, and we will either cut services or we will have additional sales tax, I think, are the 2 realistic options at this point. So I will make the motion to approve the agreement and the appropriation. I would also state that over 92% of the citizens in the state of California pay an additional sales tax that they have locally voted on in order to support their local governments and their local police, fire, parks and recreation departments. We've seen the presentation, and we are efficient. There's not much waste. We're number 1 in efficiency out of 107 cities tested. So it seems like a good time to go out to the community and see what the priorities are. Thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I think it's important to note that the proposed contract tonight is not a decision to place a tax measure on the ballot. It is instead a question about gathering information which we as elected representatives should be aware of before reaching a decision. I've had at least 12.5 community meetings with my constituents over the past year. And I hear from them all the time via text, phone, email, in person, and the issues that they raise vary, from police response to park issues to homelessness. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of where, at least the constituents of my ward, where their concerns are. And again, it varies. But there is a lot of value, I believe, in having empirical and statistically reliable data on the priorities of the citizens throughout the city of Bakersfield. And I think that if we are going to be asked to make budget cuts or perhaps consider revenue enhancement, that we ought to have that data in front of us so that we can make an informed decision. So I concur with the Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. So a few comments and I guess an explanation for my position this evening on this particular item. And this is consistent with, I just noticed there's a trophy in front of my face on the TV. This is consistent, I think, with my comments 2 months ago on this particular item when this initially came up. And that is, you know, I think anybody who sits and looks at the numbers and looks at our projections 5, 10, 15 years out, there's no doubt in my mind that there is a need to make adjustments. And my issue, though, with the course of action we're setting forth on, I have a few issues. One is it, I think it's very interesting that we've painted the picture with two polar opposites, or we're presenting it to the residents of Bakersfield as this is a decision of cutting services or increasing revenue through a sales tax. And I can't sit here and accept that, knowing that I believe there are many things in between those two extremes that I don't think we've given much thought to and much consideration to. I think there are commitments that encumber our city's budget related to a lot of our capital projects right now that I'm certainly not advocating we stop doing, but that I think are I think are items worthy of additional consideration given where we are in our budget. I think it's also a little frustrating for me that we talk about diversifying our economy often, and we've had some discussions now for the last few months where potentials for that existed, and this council went in a different direction. But diversifying the economy shouldn't come at the expense of taxing the existing economy that already exists here. And it's great to know that Northern California and Southern California and maybe other cities in between have gone in the direction of a sales tax increase. But I think one of the things that makes Bakersfield very appealing to the folks that move here and the folks that live here is that it is actually cheaper to live here. It is more affordable. And the last thing I want to do is to jeopardize that reputation moving forward, because I actually think that does more to affect our growth than increase it and enhance it. In addition to that, though I look young, I've been around for a little while, and I'll tell you, $54,000 for a poll is, for a survey, is a lot of money. I am assuming that this survey is going to tell me that I win my election in 2018. It's going to tell me that everyone else running for re-election is winning theirs as well, and maybe it'll predict the 2020 presidential election. But it's a lot of money for. It's a lot of money for a survey to essentially tell the folks sitting up here whether or not the decision you want to embark on is a popular one. I disagree with Councilmember Gonzalez in that that we're simply conducting a survey to get a pulse on the city. I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that folks up here, I don't know how many, believe that a sales tax increase is the answer to our problems, and that's fine. But why spend $54,000 in the process then to do that? I'd also add, and I know everyone else received this as well. Mine's dated November 29th, and it came to the mayor and city council members, and it was the results of a survey done by the Bakersfield Board of Realtors and the Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. I have it right here in my hands. I don't imagine we paid any money to get this, but thank you for bearing the cost of that. And in it, it goes into great detail about the very issue we're looking to spend $54,000 on right now. And, I don't know what types of conversations we had with either of those two groups, but I think we could have or could in the future benefit from working with them on an issue such as this, rather than maybe going our own way on our own path. So, to reiterate, I really don't think we're assessing the situation by evaluating all of our options. I don't think we're talking really in great detail about how we restructure the way our budgets work and how we forecast out, in longer periods of time than we do now, which I think is really on a year-to-year basis, is what it seems like to me. And for those reasons, I just can't support spending $54,000 to conduct a survey.
Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. The firm that we're talking about tonight successfully ran a campaign or did survey for City of Ridgecrest. And the ballot measure stated to prevent cuts to police officers, firefighters, paramedics, 911 emergency services, school safety patrols, anti-gang programs, et cetera, shall an ordinance be adopted establishing a 1-cent sales tax. Now, to me, that's fine, but I wonder how much support that measure would have received if it was worded a little bit differently and said, shall an ordinance be adopted establishing a 1-cent sales tax to pay pension costs and prevent cuts to police officers, firefighters, paramedics, 911 emergency services, so on and so forth. I think you might get a different answer if that was the case. We are running into budget deficits due to one specific problem in the state. It is the complete breach of fiduciary responsibility by CalPERS. And the excuse for the rates that we're going through right now is because they are lowering their assumed income rate from 7.5% down to 7%. That adjustment, that 0.5% adjustment, increases over the next 5 years our pension costs by almost $24 million. And that $24 million is each and every year thereafter. Now, the year before last, CalPERS earned not 7.5%, not 7, not 6.5%, not 1%. They earned 0.65%. So what do you think the possibility is that we will go from 7% to 6.5% and incur this exact same situation over and over again? This is not a solution to a problem because we are not participating in that problem. We are being forced into a situation that is unreasonable and unsustainable in any manner whatsoever, caused by an uninformed or misinformed legislature and apparently pie-in-the-sky CalPERS. The city deficit over the next 5 years will be $16.5 million in that fifth year. In that same time period, CalPERS will have escalated almost $24 million, which is $8 million more than what our deficit would be without that. By the year 2025, CalPERS pension contributions will have escalated $30 million each and every year from there on out. The problem cannot be solved here. It's not going to be solved in this room. The problem can only be resolved when the cities in the state of California come together, go to Sacramento, and demand reforms and demand changes. And I agree. This survey has one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to ask the people of Bakersfield to raise their sales tax. And I don't think I'm to that point yet. Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, actually, I agree with Councilmember Weir about the dire nature of the problem. I've studied it as extensively as anyone here, and we go up around $5 million a year on those pension obligations. Unfortunately, they are completely outside the purview of the council. Decisions are made at the state level. So we have to deal with the hand we have here. I did study the 4 California cities that have now declared bankruptcy over the last 3 years. Not one of them was able to modify the CalPERS contract in any way, shape, or form. It's now cast in law. It's something the legislature would have to change. They all suffered through a bankruptcy, tainted their city, cut their services severely, and ended up approving a new sales tax just to move forward at all to get their public safety back in order. Actually, all of them didn't. Most of them did. So Unfortunately, bankruptcy doesn't help you. This is something beyond our control. But we are facing a very difficult fiscal situation. I agree with Councilman Rivera. We will have to go through every department everywhere for any savings we can achieve. And when you're under pressure, you do find some additional savings. But we've been doing that exercise for at least 3 years, so most of the, quote, fat has been squeezed out that really is available, that isn't contractual. And I'm sure next year's budget, which will have to be done before we ever knew if there was ever any sales tax increase or not, will be the leanest that's ever been done in Bakersfield. And as Councilman Smith said, we're the leanest city in the state of California. So we operate pretty lean around here. When I walk precincts, and I walked well over 1,000 homes, several thousand homes, number one issue in my ward was crime. People are really upset about crime since the governor changed robberies to misdemeanors in the legislature. Crime has spiked. Talked to the chief about it. That's not going away when you know it's a misdemeanor to break into a home and burglarize it. We're going to get more of it. We weren't able to increase our resources. The government passed the problem down to us, so we have to increase our resources so he could solve his prison population. But we're going to need more public safety resources. We've been frozen for 3 to 4 years. I don't know whether we should increase sales tax or not, because I really think we have to let people of Bakersfield tell us what they want to do. I don't think that's my decision, like Councilman Gus. I want the feedback. We can't say we don't have a problem. I want to hear how the people would like to solve it. Maybe they said this isn't the right timing. We need that feedback. We need to know what type of things they believe are important. If public safety is more important than road, but if you don't go to your people and get into the fine grain of studying something, you can't make an intelligent decision. We can't make a good decision on whether we would recommend a sales tax increase or not, because we don't know what our people want. So I'm in favor of this, to study it and find out how the people of Bakersfield want to handle this problem, and then reassess once we get that information. So I'd second Councilman Smith's motion.
Councilmember Parlier.
Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and acquiesce to Councilmember Sullivan first. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've been around for a long time, and we've been talking about the possibility of this type of an action, I would say, for almost 20 years, the possibility of putting an issue like this on the ballot. We are not tax increase people. At the same time, it is a matter of fact that our budget is in dire straits. We are very sound fiscally. We have an excellent, we are as lean as we can be. We do not hire when we don't need to, and we have a high standard as far as our services are concerned, and work hard to maintain the standards that we are very proud of and that our residents expect in Bakersfield. This is just an exploratory. How can we make the decision if to be in favor of increasing or not increasing if we don't? How can we make that decision for our constituents when we don't really know how they feel and until they really realize what is involved? When the city says that we are, that our revenue is lagging, we've been hearing this for a long time. And every year we have somehow kept up the standards and kept going, but it's to a time, 55,000 is certainly a substantial amount, but yet I don't think we are in a position or able to make any kind of decision until the polling is done and until we do the best job possible in helping our residents understand the situation we are truly in. So I'm going to support. I think we owe it to our city as leaders, as decision makers. How can we make a decision without really ourselves? How can we know what we're really up against and how the community feels? So I feel it's a necessary investment, and I will support it.
Councilmember Rivera.
This is what I said, I think, 2 months ago. I don't understand why we're spending $54,000 tonight to conduct a survey when you've just heard from at least 5 other council members who, by and large, are in support of a sales tax increase. I don't understand. We're in the same breath, we're declaring a fiscal emergency. We need money. And then in that same conversation, we're going to spend $54,000 on a survey to tell us that that's where we're in, to apparently, I'm not sure, provide us some extra layer of comfort as elected officials before our voters in an election or something else, when I don't see the point. So if we're going to put a sales tax increase before the voters, put it before the voters. And then, by the way, that's when you ask them how they feel about something. You don't conduct a survey, ask them then, and then put something on the ballot and ask them again. I mean, the reason you put initiatives and measures out there is to ask and survey the public. You don't have to spend $54,000 to do that, in addition to whatever we'll have to spend when we finally decide to actually put something on the ballot, and then incur the costs associated with the campaign and whatever it is it costs to put something on the ballot then. I just don't get why we have to spend $54,000 to do that. I've heard from some council members who tell me they do know what their constituents think, and they know what the pulse of their community is. I've then heard from other council members who apparently have no idea what their constituents think. So I guess I'd encourage them to maybe go out to their neighborhoods a little bit more often, but I just don't understand why we need $54,000 to be spent in order to tell us what to do. We got elected, we're sitting up here, make a decision, put it before the voters, and move forward.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's a tough one, but my thoughts are more in line with Councilman Rivera's. I think that we could have done a better effort with our community outreach efforts. I think that maybe we should have even formed a citizen advisory committee ahead of time to see what the direction of the community is. And I agree with Councilman Rivera when he said that, a survey has already been conducted. And that was a recent survey, and those results just came in just a few weeks ago. And I'm not sure what the polling results are going to be of a new survey or how those questions are going to be asked. But I don't think it's going to be that much difference. And if this fails tonight, I think we need to back up, rebuild, and reach out to our community partners again, and including the county, and maybe start from ground zero and try and build these things up again. Those are my statements. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Weir, and Councilmember Parley voting no.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Under appointments, item A, one appointment to the Fire Department Civil Service Board due to the term expiration of Ronald Eves. An application for appointment has been received from Ronald Eves.
Since we only have one application on this particular position, I'm going to call on Vice Mayor for a motion.
I'd move to nominate Ron Evans.
Ron Eves.
Ron Eves.
Ron Eves. You have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Mr. Eves, are you in the audience? I don't see you. Thank you very much for your service, and congratulations. Thank you again for your ongoing service. Next appointment item, please.
Item B, 2 appointments to the miscellaneous Department Civil Service Board due to a term expiration of Tom Dorless and Ronald Wolf. Applications for appointment have been received from the following: Tom Dorless, Ronald Wolf, and Dorothy Weston.
So in this case, we have more than one applicant for this particular position, so the council is going to vote by ballot. So as the city clerk provides ballot to the council, I'd like to clarify the voting process for you. Although the council will use ballots, the outcome of the vote will be made public by the clerk. Based on these results, the council will then make the appropriate motion regarding each appointment. Following the council meeting, the individual ballots will be available for public review in the city clerk's office.
Just to clarify, we vote for 2.
You vote for 2.
Thank you.
Just takes a little while for the tabulation, so we'll just be patient.
Mayor Go, I have tallied the votes, and the results are as follows. Tom Dorless received 7 votes, Ronald Wolf received 7 votes, Dorothy Weston received 0 votes.
Thank you. So are either of our nominees present? Thank you for your service. And Vice Mayor, we have a motion.
I'd nominate Tom Dorless and Ronald Wolf.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Thank you.
Motion approved.
Next appointment item, please.
1 appointment to the Police Department Civil Service Board due to the term expiration of Kenneth Vetter. Applications for appointment have been received from Kelly Lucas and Dorothy Weston.
So again, this is one where we will be voting by ballot. This is a legacy situation here where we have Kenneth Vetter, who has served for 40 years. That's 40 years on this commission. And this morning at the police department, we actually had the privilege of honoring him for 40 years of service under 8 different chiefs. And everybody has just been so complimentary of his service. Mr. Vetter, we just thank you very much. I don't see you in the audience, but thank you so much for your service all these 40 years.
Mayor Go, I have tallied the votes, and the results are as follows. Kelly Lucas received 7 votes, Dorothy Weston received 0 votes.
Is Mr. Lucas present? No. Vice Mayor, motion?
I'd make a motion to nominate Kelly Lucas.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next appointment item, please.
1 appointment, item D, 1 appointment to the Kern Mosquito and Vector Control District due to the term expiration of Florin Core. Applications for appointment have been received from Florin Core and Dorothy Weston.
Again, this is a vote by ballot.
Mayor Go, I've tallied the votes, and the results are as follows. Floor and Core received 7 votes. Dorothy Weston received 0 votes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, motion?
I would nominate Florin Core, who thank you for your many years of service to the city of Bakersfield, also to the appointment.
You have a motion, please cast your vote. Did you cast your votes?
Motion approved.
Thank you. And Mr. Korn, you're in the audience. Would you please stand so that we can just acknowledge you? Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for your willingness to serve again. Thank you. Next appointment item, please.
Item E, 1 appointment to the North of the River Recreation and Park District due to the term expiration of Robert LaRude. An application for appointment has been received from Robert LaRude.
And again, in this case, we only have one applicant, so I'll call on the Vice Mayor for a motion.
Motion to appoint Robert LaRue.
Motion, please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Thank you. I don't think Mr. LaRude is in the audience, but thank you for your service, Mr. LaRude. And the next applicant appointment item.
Item F, 1 appointment to the Bakersfield Youth Commission due to a vacancy. An application for appointment has been received from Tate Turner.
And for this position, specific to Ward 2, we only have one applicant, so I'll call on Councilmember Gonzalez for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Go. It's my honor tonight to nominate Tate Turner to the Bakersfield Youth Commission representing Ward 2. Tate is in the audience tonight with his parents and his family. Welcome tonight. And he's lasted this long at the council meeting, so he deserves a spot just for that. But I'd like to read, if I may, some words from his head counselor at Bakersfield High School, who wrote that, I have to remind myself that Tate is only a junior in high school. He is wise beyond his years, professional, personable, intelligent, and charismatic. He loves his community deeply and has every intention of eventually heading off to college to study engineering, only to return and continue making a difference in this community that has watched all he is capable of in awe. So I'm looking forward to working with him as he serves on the Youth Commission.
You have a motion? Please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Thank you. At this time, we've had a break requested, and so we'll just take a 5-minute break and come back here in 5 minutes. All right, we have reconvened here, and Mr. Clerk, what's our next item?
Consent calendar items 8A through 8BA for approval. A staff memorandum has been received removing item 8Z from the agenda at the request of staff.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I have asked the other council members, and nobody wants to pull any items off. I do have a conflict for item 8O, so my vote will not count on that. It is a client of mine. So I would make a motion on consent calendar items 8A through BA, accepting Z, for approval.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. It's now time for the consent calendar hearings. The purpose of this section is to vote on all of the items listed under the consent calendar hearings in one motion without further comment. If anyone would like to speak on any of the hearing items listed, the item must be removed from this portion of the agenda. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the regular public hearing portion of the meeting. So at this time, I will open consent calendar public hearing items 9A through 9E. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to have a hearing item removed from the consent calendar? If so, please come forward. This isn't the time to take testimony, only to remove the matter from the consent calendar hearing.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to have item 9D removed, please.
9D, thank you. Is there anyone else? Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar hearing? Vice
I would
Mayor?
like item 9A removed. Thank you.
9A. Any other council members? So it, Mr. Clerk?
Mayor Go, 2 staff memoranda have been received regarding consent calendar items 9A. A staff memorandum was received replacing the original submitted Exhibit A with an attached revised exhibit. A staff memorandum has been received transmitting a letter from Kern Delta Water District in opposition to the staff recommendation.
So at this time, consent calendar hearing items 9B, 9C, and 9E are closed. Vice Mayor?
I would move for approval on items 9B, C, and E.
You have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Our next item is the public hearing. Before I open the public hearing, I'll go over the presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes for all speakers, so it's important that you identify yourself, make your statement quickly so others may speak. We'll hear statements from those opposed to the staff recommendation first, then we'll hear from those who would like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation. If there's testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal. There's a clock on the wall behind me which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and after 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on. At the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating your time is up, and at that point, please quickly end your comments. You may ask questions during your statement, but they won't be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give those to the clerk, please, and he'll provide copies to the council. Please be courteous to all the others who wish to speak. And unless there's approval by the majority of the City Council, there's a strict 15-minute time limit for all those in favor or in opposition to staff's recommendation. So please be concise and avoid repeating the remarks of previous speakers. Mr. Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
Item A, public hearing on proposed pedestrian crossing of 24th Street at Pine Street. Number 1, approval of construction of new pedestrian crossing of 24th Street at Pine Street. Number 2, resolution adopting an addendum to the recirculated final environmental impact report for the 24th Street widening project. A staff memorandum has been received transmitting 3 emails in opposition and 1 email in support of the staff recommendation.
Thank you. So that's 10A. Mr. Fiddler.
Mr. Clerk, can you please bring up the power? Thank you. Honorable Mayor and council members, tonight we'll be talking about the proposed crosswalk location to Pine Street. Just a recap of some of the history that has been involved. On October 11th, 2017, City Council voted to remove the existing crosswalks at Alder A Street and Drake D Street along the 24th corridor because they were determined to be unsafe in their current location and design. At that time, Council directed staff to propose a replacement location for a new crosswalk and come back to Council for that. And as requested, staff has prepared the update and asked TY Lin International, the city's design consultant, to evaluate the corridor. TY Lin has identified 3 locations: Cedar Street, Pine Street, and then a mid-block between Cedar and Pine Street. On November 20th, 2017, TY Lin International prepared and submitted a memorandum stating that they propose a hawk signal at the Pine Street location for the following reasons. The 2 following reasons are stopping site distance and decision site distance. Tonight, you'll be asked to hear from the residents about the proposed location, and then staff will ask the council to vote on the proposed new location. In addition, staff prepared a CEQA addendum addressing the relocation of the crosswalk. Staff will ask council to approve that relocation, or that CEQA addendum. Just to give you a recap of where the crosswalks are, this is a picture of the corridor between Oak Street and F Street. You can see at your far right-hand side of the screen is D and Drake Street crossing, and then in the middle, A and Alder Street crossing, and then the one encircled in green is the Pine Street crossing. That is the proposed new location of the new Hawk Signal pedestrian crossing. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Chapman with T.Y. Lin International. She will walk you through their studies and then the proposed new location and the design of the Hawk Signal system.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Good evening, Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Smith, and council members. As Mr. Fiddler explained to you in our evaluations of a new location for a crosswalk on 24th Street, we had to look at a couple of different design criteria. One is the stopping sight distance, and one is decision sight distance. And these are national design standards adopted by the city of Bakersfield that are prescribed for the use of highway design throughout the country. In this particular case, the decision site distance was the controlling criteria for the location of the crosswalk. And what you see on this slide here is an aerial view of 24th Street between Myrtle and Alder Streets. And in the center there is Pine Street, where you see the red graphics. This is the proposed configuration of 24th Street, so you'll notice that there are 3 lanes in each direction, and then the green stripe down the middle is the proposed median, landscape median, that will have trees in it once the project is complete. The decision site distance that needs to be met in advance of the crosswalks is 800 feet. In the westbound direction, we have a lane, 2 lanes that are merging together in the westbound direction, shown in orange, just off to the right of the slide. Thank you very much. And that from 800 feet to the west of that location would take us just to about Pine Street. It's about 880 feet away. So it exceeds the minimum requirement for the decision site distance. And in the eastbound direction, we have, just due to some geometric requirements, we're able to provide that decision site distance as well to allow a crossing at Pine Street that would be safe. On the next slide, what we have here is a configuration showing, or a slide, excuse me, showing you what the Hawk signal will look like. HAWK stands for, it's an acronym for High Intensity Activated Signal Crosswalk. The signal head itself looks like a T. It's got 2 lights on the top and a third one on the bottom. And on the left side of the screen, you see what drivers will see in the order in which the lights activate. So at first, if there's no one in the crosswalk, it's black. There's no need for anyone to stop at the crosswalk if there's no pedestrian that has activated the signal. When the button is pushed by a pedestrian to activate the signal, the bottom light, which is yellow, will flash. And then it will, and what that means is they need to stop. Drivers need to stop. Both of the top signals will turn red at that time, and that's when the pedestrians receive the walk signal for them to enter the crosswalk. And then there's a pedestrian clearance interval where the 2 top red signals will alternate back and forth flashing, and then once the pedestrian clearance signal is complete, then the light goes black again, and it doesn't turn on again until somebody pushes the button to activate it. From a pedestrian standpoint, in the second column from the left, it looks exactly like any other crosswalk that pedestrians would experience in the city of Bakersfield. And on the right side of your screen, there is just a combination of how those two, both the driver and the pedestrian signals, are coordinated. On the following slide, oops, we have one more slide to show you. This is a rendering of what the crosswalk would look like from a number of different angles, just looking at it from the northwest corner, the northeast corner, the southwest corner, the southeast corner. It's called an offset crosswalk where pedestrians would cross one leg of 24th Street and then travel down the median, protected from traffic by barriers, and then cross across the other side of 24th Street. We would be enhancing the pavement in the median for this walkway to be aesthetically pleasing. It wouldn't just be plain concrete, and it would tie into the aesthetics of the corridor.
In closing, staff recommends that council approve the construction of the new pedestrian crossing of 24th Street and Pine and adopt the addendum to the revised final environmental impact report.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. We have a court reporter present for this public hearing item. So for all of those who speak on this item, we'd ask you to speak clearly so that the court reporter can document your testimony. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. How many people would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Can you just raise your hand so we get an idea? If you would line up on this side. Please come forward to the mic, identify yourself, and proceed.
My name is John Wilson. The address is 2012 E Street. Questions? With the addition of the signalized crosswalk at Pine, will there be above ambient noise generated, such as audible signs for the blind, idling cars? Will there be a sound wall required if there is above ambient noise? If yes, will the sound wall be the same as the one being proposed at the south side of 24th Street currently, between A and B, the only sound wall proposed on the south side? Will there be noise study a part of the new signal? Design speed for 24th Street project, as stated, is 45 miles an hour. The existing speed limits are 40 miles an hour eastbound side and 35 miles an hour for the northbound side. The southbound side has uncontrolled alleys for garbage trucks, entering a bad sight distance, 3-lane, 45 mile an hour speed limit area. The speed limit may be way too high. The council meeting in October, the administrative record was prepared. They expressed TY Lynn's concerns regarding their own design. And TY Lynn stated they will not sign their own plans and their own design unless the city council removed the other crosswalk. TY Lynn also stated the volume of traffic on 24th Street makes any crossing on 24th Street unsafe. This was stated not only at their administrative record, but also in the resolution you adopted. Why are we now changing our minds that putting any crosswalk on 24th Street proposed by the same TY Lynn company that is now reneging on their own administrative record? Subsequent to the October meeting, we put forward a public records request asking for all documentation of TY Lynn's understanding that they would not sign their own plans. All documents. We got zero. There weren't and aren't any documents that TY Lynn forwarded to the city that was summarized in the public records request. If we submit another public request tomorrow, will we get any records? The memo that was stated is not part of the administrative record. We don't see it. Can we get a hold of it? Lastly, it was stated that decision distance is 800 feet. That's for suburban areas. The distance as measured is 880. I'm sorry, the urban distance is 930. Something's not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Council members, I'm not sure that it was determined exactly how much time a pedestrian was going to be given to go across the street, but I just wonder if they're giving it enough time for someone in a wheelchair, if this whole design is ADA compliant, because after all, part of what we did as a council when we started looking at this design and discussing who was going to be going down 24th Street, we were concerned about people in wheelchairs. So I don't see anything about this being ADA compliant. I'd like to ask a rhetorical question too. How many of you council members in the last 2-3 months have been down to 24th Street to see what the traffic's like? Come down there at maybe 7:15, 8 o'clock in the morning. Come by at noon. You know, I have said many times I make a left-hand turn at about 7:30 every morning to take my grandchildren up to Heritage, and it never takes me more than about a minute, 2 minutes at the most. This morning it took 30 seconds. So the traffic that they're telling you about, it does not exist. I don't know how more emphatic I can make that. We have rush hour traffic on 24th Street just like you do in your area of Bakersfield. And once rush hour is over, we don't have all that much traffic going on because I take that left-hand turn probably 3 times a day minimum. I never have a problem. I don't know that there's anybody in this room who can actually tell me that 45 miles an hour is going to be the speed limit on 24th Street when they finish this project. I asked Mr. Fiddler many times, what's it going to be? And he says, we don't determine that. So how T.Y. Lin has determined that the speed limit is going to be 45 miles an hour, I don't know. I thought the state did that. I thought that was determined by somebody other than the city of Bakersfield or T.Y. Lin or Terry Maxwell or anybody on the council. It's not determined by us. That will be determined by someone else. Now, if we could, I'd like to see us put 3 crosswalks in and really slow down the traffic. And that way we'd have a community that was nicely connected between the north side and the south side. Putting 1 crosswalk in the middle of F Street to Oak Street is gratuitous. It's not taking us seriously at all. It's not saying, okay, the north side and the south side, we do need to respect the fact that they have to have community connectivity between those 2 sides. We should have 3. We should have 1 down by Alder. We should have 1 at Pine and one down at Beach. That's what this community really would like to see. We don't want a freeway going through our neighborhood. And that's what you're proposing. Because what you're trying to do is make this crosswalk, this 1 measly crosswalk, so that it doesn't deter this basic rush through 24th Street. This morning, I clocked a guy at 60 miles an hour. That's why I asked, when was the last time you were down on 24th Street? I know that Councilmember Weir doesn't even go 24th Street to his office. He lives on the east side and he's on California. I'm not sure which way he does go, but maybe he should spend some time, if he would, to go down 24th Street. He'd realize the traffic is not that bad in the Tree Street areas. It just isn't. And what was the purpose of the 24th Street widening project? The purpose was to increase flow of traffic. How does this crosswalk marry into what you're talking about? So you have completely changed what the purpose of this whole project is. So why don't we put it back to where it should be? Put it back to give us 3 crosswalks. Make this a nice, safe area for everybody. Reduce the speed limit to 35 miles an hour. You know, I've traveled I-40, and there's plenty of communities when you get on I-40 and you get into their community, it's 25 miles an hour. Because you have to respect the fact that you're going through either a business district or you're going through a residential district. It's a residential district, people. Give us what we deserve, that connectivity, so that anybody who lives on Alder, anybody who lives on Beach doesn't have to walk all the way down to Pine, go through this labyrinth of a crosswalk in order to get to the other side, to go to Jasper Park or to go to Franklin Elementary School, to visit friends. So I'm against this for several reasons. I'm for putting a crosswalk, but not one. I'd like to see at least 3. I'd like to see that connectivity. And I know that there's other people in this room and people watching right now that agree with that. Don't make our neighborhood a freeway. If you go down this road of putting this type of a crosswalk in, and it comes back that the speed limit on that street is going to be 45 miles an hour, I think you're going to have some real problems. I think you're going to have some major problems. We already have problems with pedestrians getting run over already. You'll be setting yourselves up for a pedestrian getting run over, because 45 mile an hour, that's what they're doing now, minimum. You make it 45 miles an hour and people are going to be doing 60 miles an hour absolutely every day, almost every car. So keep that in mind. If you put three crosswalks in there, you know what? I think the state comes in and says, yeah, with those crosswalks, you should not have a speed limit that is that high. And it'd get down to where we would feel safer. I would say that changing where the crosswalks are is a significant change. I would disagree with the opinion that was laid forth and given to you that we can go ahead and move forward. You as a body can go ahead and move forward on this. This is a significant change. T.Y. Lind has now said, based on the design you had with a crosswalk at Alder and at D, this is an unsafe design. Unsafe. Now, how long have we been looking at this design for 24th Street and saying, oh yeah, when I was on the council, I said, we've got problems with the design of this that they're laying out on us. And now you've got T.Y. Lind telling you, they're an international company, and they're telling you, you've got problems, this is unsafe. You just had an engineer tell you that 800 feet is not what you should do at 45 miles an hour, it's 930. I think you should really tread carefully going into the future with this. And I would urge you to send this back to the city manager's office and ask them, what would T.Y. Lind give us if they had a 35 mile an hour speed limit? How many more crosswalks could we get? What if it were 30 miles an hour? What if it was 40? Why did they choose 45 miles an hour when they don't even know what it's going to be? I think those are really strong considerations for this council, because in the future, if this ever gets built and somebody gets killed in that crosswalk, it'll be because we didn't make it something that connected two communities that used to be together back together. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Maxwell, for the record, would you identify yourself, please?
Oh, sure. Terry Maxwell. I live at 2420 Pine Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, how many of you would like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, would you come forward just so we can save some time and just line up on the side or just sit in the front row? That would be helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 now. And just remember that we have 15 minutes total, so if you could be considerate and let all speakers speak. Don't go too far away so we know how many people we have here.
Okay, I'll start. My name is Marvin Dean. This is not a first ward issue, but council members vote on citywide issues. I've been watching this issue in the 24th Street. This has been probably going on for 3 or 4 years. In terms of the folks out there organizing has concerns about what's happening out there. And I'm mostly supportive of what they're concerned about, their community being divided and so forth, but I'm also knowing that Bakersfield growing, that we've got to do something about the freeway and the growth and all that. And the fact that the project's not going to stop, even though some would like to stop the project, I think it's a foregone conclusion. And I know this came out of a referral by one of the councilmen that represent the ward based on some citizens to put in that crosswalk. And to me, just looking at it from a distance, it seemed like a compromise to try to work with the folks out there to give them part of what they're asking for. They may not get 100%. So I'm here supporting staff recommendation, but I would also say, like Terry was mentioning a few minutes ago, if there's an opportunity to put in another crosswalk or so to accommodate the folks out there, I think we need to do so. But I think that staff ought to be commended for at least trying to find a solution to a problem that everybody's not going to be satisfied with, but it is a good start. So I support staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself.
I'm Mark Nystrom. I live on Beach Street, about 1 block north of 24th, and I'm here to encourage you to approve this offset crosswalk at Pine Street. I'm impressed that the offset nature of it makes it safer and easier to cross, and that that would make it possible perhaps to do some synchronization as well to make it so that traffic won't be stopping and starting as it moves through the neighborhood. I'm probably one of the few people in the room that's actually ridden a bicycle on 24th Street a couple times a day when I was commuting down to Brundage to go to work. So I know that riding on that street can be somewhat dangerous. I don't think we need more than one crossing. I think the one at Pine Street is in a good place. The one at Alder probably was too close to the other stoplights. I'm here to support the proposal that I just saw presented.
Thank you, Mr. Nystrom. Next speaker, please. Would you pull the mic towards you, please? Please identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Katie Brewer, and I'm a resident on the north side of 24th Street. And I'm in favor of the Pine Street crosswalk. I do believe it will be safe for myself, my husband, my 2 children, that we like to walk and bike around our beautiful neighborhood. Having a safe crosswalk would allow it for us and families like ours to access to the neighborhood parks, school, churches, downtown shops, and restaurants. My parents, my son's grandparents, only live 6 houses away from us on the south side, yet we have to get into a car and drive to their house. Likewise, our neighborhood park, Jastro, is 6 blocks away from us, but we have to drive. So I'm just really in favor of this crosswalk. I would use it all the time, and I know several families who would as well. So please give us this for connection for our community of Westchester. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself and go ahead and pull it up a little.
Jack Becker. I live on the south side of D Street, and I'm also in favor of this crosswalk. I'm kind of saddened to lose that D Street crosswalk because I would use that all the time to get to the north side. But definitely glad to see that something's happening to connect these 2 neighborhoods through this project. One thing that I would like the city to think about when they're doing more crosswalk projects and roadway projects is to remember that all intersections are crosswalks. A lot of the times in the reports and the documentation, it talks about crosswalks, but really they're talking about marked crosswalks, because that's something to consider. If you went on the map, all of those intersections would be crosswalks, not just ones that are marked. So if you are going to just specify marked crosswalks, not all crosswalks. Definitely glad this project is going ahead, and thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Next speaker, please.
My name is Gary Entz, and I live north of 24th in the Westchester neighborhood on Drake Street. And I do support this crosswalk. It seems like a sound design. And my neighbor Terry Maxwell, he mentioned many points that I also share much of his concerns. If we're going to have one crosswalk, I want that crosswalk. I want it. But we are talking about 13 city blocks here, and this is a residential neighborhood. And really, is one crosswalk really enough? I talked to many of my neighbors before the October meeting, and nobody was happy about this stream of traffic running through, and no one was happy that we were going to lose our crosswalks altogether. So something to consider. This crosswalk, we do need it to get to our park, to our school, to the churches, to a viable way downtown, and I'm happy to see that it's got a pedestrian median and the hawk design. It seems sound, but I would ask you to consider in the future, is this all that there's going to be? Or do we need another crosswalk at Beach? Or do we need another one closer to Drake? We're losing a crosswalk ultimately that I like Jack, I use all the time with my family. Drake Street disappears. But keep in mind that people will continue to cross in areas because it's convenient rather than to walk a long, long distance. So I think in the future, considering pedestrians more and more in the future. But I do want this crosswalk, and I urge you to vote yes for this crosswalk at Pine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Entz. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, council, people. My name is Zachary Griffin. I'm Vision Zero Kern and a local resident on A Street. I also work as bike education coordinator for a local school district here. Definitely in favor of what staff has brought forward. Very familiar with this project. It's been a long project, and I think as many have pointed out that it's kind of gotten past a certain stage. Obviously, we'd like to have more connectivity from the educational standpoint. What our kids lack is physical activity. Long ago, before my time, physical activity was gained through daily activity. Chopping wood, going to and from school on your bike or on your feet. So having more connectivity for our community is better. Obviously, perfect is a dream we hope to one day achieve. But it's not something that we see day to day. So I recognize that there are hurdles. We'd love to have more of them. But what staff has brought forward is awesome, and we're great to see the progression of this. So I want to, again, be in favor of what staff has brought forward, and thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. At this time, is there anyone who would like to rebut in opposition? This would be rebutting what was just said.
Good evening. My name is Renee Nelson. Thank you for the opportunity. One is better than nothing. That's true, but it's not enough. We have an opportunity to do a wonderful thing. First of all, you didn't get a complete environmental analysis for this proposed one crosswalk. So let's look at that first. Request that staff give us, the public, and yourselves as the decision makers, an opportunity to look at the details of why we're down to this one. We know some of the technical, but we don't know the environmental. You're proposing a sound wall for the north side. What happens to the people that are going to cross with the sound wall there? When you put holes in a sound wall, you defeat the purpose of the sound wall. Therefore, why put it up in the first place? I have to say I do support the idea of the median, in the middle of the street, because it does give pedestrians a place to stop safely. I wouldn't love the idea of having to walk down the middle of the street, even though the cars are supposed to be stopped, to get to the other part of the crosswalk. Make it direct, give us more. Think about what you're asking people to do in their neighborhood. They want to cross the street to the park, to the school, to art classes, wherever they might be going. I would love to see this continued, and I would love to see staff give us a little more detail and find it within themselves to follow the law. The law is that you need to do a further environmental study. I won't quantify what kind. I believe you have something on the record. I don't know if you have that letter before you today, but you should read that before you decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to rebut in opposition? We have about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that
Go ahead and identify yourself, please.
Terry Maxwell, I think you have to go back to the speed limit question, because if they've assumed it's going to be 45 miles an hour and people are going to be doing 50 and 60, as Renee just pointed out, if somebody is in that median and they're walking to go hit the next button, would you like to have a dog and your kids going down that street with people zipping by you at 60 miles an hour? I mean, they don't like pedestrians on freeways because of the speed. Because you just never know what somebody's going to do, whether they're going to jump out in front of a car or a car loses control and jumps across and catches somebody. So if you're willing to go forward with this tonight, what guarantees do you have that it's going to be 45 miles an hour? You don't have any. It could be 50, it could be 55. Look at most of the other arterials that are 3 lanes in both directions. Most of them are 50 miles an hour, and a couple of them are 55. So to think that this one's only going to be at 45, I don't know. I think you're taking a chance here. So I would go back to what I said before. I think the more crosswalks you can put into this area, the more likely the speed limit will be the speed limit you want. With only one there and with the Hawk system, as I say, I think it's going to be a fairly high speed limit that you're going to get assessed. And when people see that kind of a speed limit, they'll go whatever they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to rebut in opposition? Seeing none, is there anyone who would, oh, I'm sorry, come on forward. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening, Judith Hahnemann. I'm a resident right on 24th Street, and I really want to affirm the statements about speed. I live there, I see it. We have BPD there, thank you very much, frequently pulling people over because it's a known speed area. I also actually know a retired BPD officer who said 25 years ago speed was an issue on this road. So please, just keep in mind in this design phase what you do put in place, because I personally believe that the speed is going to go up because the road is going to be wider and it's going to basically be faster. It will act as an arterial, and it will actually encourage drivers to go even faster because there's nothing stopping them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the last just few seconds who would like to rebut in opposition? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to rebut in support? Rebut in support. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all of the residents of Westchester for coming out and speaking up, and to thank all of the residents who sent me letters and emails regarding this issue. My primary concern when considering a crosswalk over 24th Street is obviously pedestrian safety. And it has been ever since this idea of a new crosswalk was proposed to me. And I'm also very concerned with balancing the overall goals of the 24th Street project with the needs of pedestrians. And after a lot of research and talking with city staff and other experts, I'm convinced that we've developed a compromise that will be both beneficial and helpful for the overall project. Regarding impacts to traffic, the pedestrian activated signal will be coordinated with the adjacent signalized intersections. The pedestrian crossings will stop vehicles in only one direction at a time to limit the delay to the east-west traffic on 24th Street. And regarding safety, I'd like to point to a Federal Highway Administration study entitled Pedestrian Hybrid Beacon Guide with recommendations and a case study. And in it, it points to a case study in Tucson, Arizona, where they conducted a before and after study of high-intensity activated crosswalks, these Hawk pedestrian treatments. And they found that there was a 29% reduction in total crashes and a 69% reduction in pedestrian crashes. And as I began to do more research on this, learned that cities throughout the country and throughout the world have adopted this treatment in order to make a safer crossing. So with that, I'm convinced this is a good compromise, and I'd like to recommend approval of staff recommendation.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank staff. I think it's a great design, and we know that we have what way too many pedestrian accidents, and the reason is not because we have crosswalks. The reason is because we don't have crosswalks. That a large proportion of the accidents are where there are no crosswalks, and to provide a safe crossing will help reduce accidents in the area because people will cross, whether it's safe walking there or not. So thank you, staff, and thank you, neighborhood, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and perhaps we'll see more of these types of treatments in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Parlier now.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of the crosswalk too, but Nick, I just want to chat about the design here real quick. First of all, I'm looking over Chris's shoulder here. He still has it up on his screen. Yeah, if you can pull it up, that'd be great. So on the interior of the crosswalk, is that going to be just blacktop colored, or is there going to be a separate color in there to bifurcate the area as far as cars approaching?
Councilmember Parlier, I assume you're talking about the red area and the median?
No, I'm actually talking about the crosswalk itself, to highlight that area, to, you know, I don't know if there's a lighter color in there. In fact, before when Jackie was showing the Chester Street with the high-speed rail, there was a depiction of a crosswalk with a lighter color in there. Is there...
During the design process, we can look at options for the striping. There are several types of crosswalk marking materials. Typically, the crosswalk has to be a white unless it's within a school zone, and then it's yellow. But there are the availability of putting what they call like a blocked crosswalk. Can't remember the exact term of it, but it's more of a substantial blocking that goes parallel with the roadways, and it stands out a little bit higher. There's different options for how to mark the crosswalk to make it stand out.
Okay,
better.
my point is if a pedestrian is inside there, something that's going to highlight that pedestrian a little bit more. Is there going to be preparatory warning lights? And I know you're probably, you know, like you said, working on your design phase, but there's going to be any LED preparatory lights or anything before you reach this location?
There is signage ahead that indicates a crosswalk ahead. We do, at this point, we don't have a design for preparatory lights because this is a pedestrian activated crossing. It'd be difficult to put that far in advance.
Well,
project.
While you're going over your design, I'd like to see something that maybe works in tandem with the signalization of the pedestrian light, again, to maybe give preparatory warning before a car reaches that area. And also, my last comment is in regards to in-ground signalization. I think we talked previously about something I saw at the California League of Cities. One of the vendors had it's an in-ground lighting device that I believe it's yellow and then switches to red once the signal is turned for added benefit for the pedestrian safety.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking. There are applications where there's some in-ground lights, but I've never seen a yellow and red. But that's something we can look at if there's other options out there as well.
Okay, I think I still have that information. So if something like that could be possibly put in with the design, I think it could definitely add to pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman.
My question's for Mr. Fiddler also. Since this road isn't an arterial, it's supposed to increase the flow of traffic like an arterial, but it runs through a neighborhood, so it really has to be a hybrid type of street. And most of the comments were about safety and speed. And I heard it said that we do not get to set the speed or have any influence on the speed. Who sets the speed? And I guess my question is, are we able to give input in this process to have the kind of speeds that we would want to ensure the safety at the crosswalk? I just heard so many comments that that's out of our purview, and I wonder if you could address that.
So, Councilmember Freeman, the speed limit is set per methods used in the California Vehicle Code. We go out there and perform a survey of vehicles running through the corridor, and then we determine the 85th percentile of that vehicle will set the speed limit for that corridor. So when it was mentioned that the state sets the speed limit, that's not entirely correct. We, the city, go out there and do the survey, and we abide by the state California Vehicle Code to set the speed limit on that corridor.
And this will be after the installation of the proposed speed light, crosswalk. We'll then measure how fast people go, not before.
Correct. The speed limits are set on a 5 to 7 year frequency. The city is required to go out there and resurvey the street limits between a 5 and 7 year period to keep the speed vehicle or the speed limit enforceable. So the city tries to go out and resurvey all the roadways within that 5 to 7 year period to establish the speed limits so they are enforceable by the public. It's not determined upon when the street light signal goes in. It's on a period of time.
Well, this is a new road, so surveying back 5 years wouldn't give us good data of how people will behave on a new road with a new design. So I just want, will these surveys take place in the future? And there has to be some sort of a speed limit set initially.
That's
But
correct.
using the design before we had a crosswalk would
We
seem-
would not reset the speed limits prior to the project being 100% complete, if that's your question.
Yeah, we have a lot of concern about speed. It just seems that, I understand, we set it at 85% of the speed that people sort of unconsciously decide to drive on this road, but it's a new road. So I'm trying to figure out, how will we set it initially?
If I may jump in here, if memory serves, we wait a period of time after opening of the new road because people learning it, engaging it. I'm not sure exactly what that time frame is, but then we conduct a new speed survey, and the information is brought forward to the City Council if it justifies an alteration based on the data and compliance with the state regulation. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
correct.
we'll be informed as to what you're going to set this rate at because of your survey.
Correct. Every speed limit change is brought to the council for approval.
Okay, thank you.
You have a motion, please cast your vote.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Ware voting no.
Thank you. We still have 2 items to consider. Mr. Clerk, would you read the first one, please?
Item 9A, public hearing to consider Taft Highway Farmers Canal Bridge District. Number 1, resolution adopting the Taft Highway Farmer Canal Bridge District and approving the boundaries, the area, construction cost, and fee schedule.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments before I open the public hearing? Oh,
Excuse me, Mayor Go, and the second part to that is number 2, adoption of an ordinance amending subsection F1 of section 16.32.060 of the Bakersfield Municipal Code relating to bridge crossings and major thoroughfares.
Staff, any comments?
Honorable Mayor and council members, this process is used frequently to establish improvements to a roadway that's on a list of improvements required by the developers. This specific one is to build a new bridge over the Farmers Canal on Panama Lane. I'm sorry, Taft Highway. The applicant who is developing a parcel adjacent to the crossing has requested to form this bridge and major thoroughfare to help develop the roadway adjacent to his property.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll return this now to our Vice Mayor, who had pulled this comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted staff to respond to Kern Delta's letter. And the question is, you know, are they included in the district, and why would they be included?
And I failed to close the public hearing. The public hearing is closed, and go ahead, staff.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor Smith, staff did reach out to the Kern Delta Water District. They did identify the concern that they had with the proposed district. They, as you've seen, we attached a submittal to tonight revising the engineer's estimate for the bridge and major thoroughfare. There was some inadequate or incorrect information within the engineer's estimate that placed some fees within the Kern Delta's fee structure, which was not correct. There was some design engineering fees that ended up within the Kern Delta's fees section of the estimate. We did discuss with them, and your second part of the question was if they do have property within the boundary area of the bridge and major thoroughfare, and the answer is yes. The Kern Delta acquired some additional land south of Taft Highway that originally had some zone change conditions on, or GPA zone change conditions on them which were within the boundary, which were a requirement to participate in the bridge and major thoroughfare program. However, at this point, they don't plan on developing that property. They are using that property specifically for water recharge.
So they wouldn't be charged any fees if it wasn't developed?
Not until it is developed, until they decide to develop that property, then that's when they would be charged the fees.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, I would move to approve items 1 and 2 of 9A.
You have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We have another item still to consider. Mr. Clerk?
Item 9D, public hearing on resolutions of necessity to determine the public interest and necessity for acquisition in certain real property for eminent domain for the 24th Street Improvement Project located at 1201 24th Street.
Thank you. Staff, do you wish to comment?
Honorable Mayor and council members, this request is, council is being asked to consider the adoption of a resolution of necessity to acquire partial fee right-of-way interest on approximately 36,700 square foot parcel improved. The council, also your council is being asked to consider the adoption of a resolution necessary to acquire a partial right-of-way interest of 514 square feet for temporary construction easement.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Is there anyone else? Raise your hand, please. Thank you. Go ahead and identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Terry Maxwell. Well, it seems like we've gotten a lot of opportunities today, huh? I'd like to go back on this particular piece of property. This is off of M Street. It's on the east side. So it's right as you get at the end of the freeway, the Crosstown Freeway. Now, to my recollection, this piece of property was originally owned by Caltrans. The city of Bakersfield, in order to get the project that is on the west side of M Street completed, made an agreement, and the city of Bakersfield took over that piece of property and then somehow gave it or sold it to the person who you're now having problems with getting an easement on. So I'm just kind of wondering what the heck's going on that the person who owns this piece of property wouldn't be more understanding of your needs, of the community needs, when you went out of your way to get this particular piece of property away from Caltrans, because Caltrans, they don't sell to individuals, but the city can. So I would ask this council to look very carefully into this, maybe not make a decision tonight, but go back and ask exactly how did this person get in possession of this particular piece of property. It might help you in bringing down the cost, because if you do get to the point where you have to do court, take them to court, it's going to be expensive. So out of that consideration, I would be against you approving this tonight, and maybe letting at least the public and yourselves know a little bit more about this piece of property. You're not taking a huge piece of it. It's just a sliver on both sides. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, anyone who would like to speak in support or favor of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to Mr. Maxwell's comment, is there something mysterious about this property? I just tried looking at a map and I couldn't really figure out where it was.
Councilmember Rivera, I have a hunch that Property Manager Don Anderson can respond to the question for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilmember Rivera. There is nothing mysterious about the property. Mr. Maxwell is correct. It was purchased through cooperation between the city and Caltrans for the development project that is currently there now. Did you have any other questions? Did that answer the question?
So is there a reason why you figure we've hit a wall, so to speak, with the particular owner, whoever that is?
Well, the owner we've had numerous conversations, and Mr. Fiddler has been at some of the more recent ones. He is trying to see if he as a property owner is trying to minimize the impacts of the project on his property. We're trying to see if any design changes can be made to achieve the project goals and yet minimize the impacts to his property, as we do on any property or any project. He has just been very engaged in the process and it's taking longer. He has reached out and said he's not opposed to the project, but he needs more time to understand its impacts on his operations and his business. We are continuing to negotiate with him, as we always do on anybody that we adopt on. So we fully expect that we'll be able to negotiate a settlement. But in order to keep the project moving forward and allow us to certify it in a reasonable time, we have to start the RON to basically hedge our bets.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move item 9D.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Under new business, item A, first reading of an ordinance adding section 17.04.077 and 17.04.078 and amending section 17.24.020, 17.28.030, and 17.30.020 of the Bakersfield Municipal Code relating to brewery or distillery large and brewery or distillery small.
Ms. Kitchen.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Clerk, if I could get the presentation, please. Thank you. So, given the late hour, I will try to keep it brief, but this is what I would consider a fun item for the agenda tonight. What this is a proposal to amend our current municipal code to allow for microbreweries and distilleries in the downtown area. This proposal originated from a referral from Councilmember Gonzalez back in June who asked us to look into this issue. So staff diligently got to work and researched what other jurisdictions are doing, how they're working through it, what they do with microbreweries, et cetera. We found that many jurisdictions have very lengthy, sometimes 20, 30-page ordinances relating to this issue. So of course we wanted to avoid that in our research, but also address any concerns that may arise from this. We also made a presentation to the Planning and Development Committee that several of you were on, and we've talked about this rather extensively through those committee meetings. And back in October, we presented background information as well as information related to where breweries can be placed currently. They are currently allowed in industrial zones only. This map shows the 3 active breweries in the city limits. As you can see from this map, they're in the gray areas, which is industrial zoning. So we knew that there would need to be amendments made in order to allow this type of use on a micro level in the downtown area. We noted that there were some items and compatibility considerations that should be addressed, as brewing can be a rather large commercial venture if it's allowed to be so, and that's why it's currently only permitted in the industrial zones. However, we worked closely with the San Joaquin Air Pollution Control District, with the Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control, and found a way where we could create a use for this smaller craft type industry. So in doing that, we, as I said, worked with the ABC to look at the types of permits that they currently have in place to regulate these types of uses. And we found 2 that met the intent of Councilmember Gonzalez's referral to allow for the smaller microbreweries and distilleries in the downtown area. And with that information, we were able to craft 2 simple definitions of a large microbrewery or distillery or a small microbrewery or distillery. The larger facilities will continue to be permitted in the industrial zones as they are now. The smaller facilities will be allowed in the commercial zones, the C2, the CB, and the CC, which is inclusive of the downtown area. So that is shown here. As you can see from this map, downtown Bakersfield is predominantly zoned with the CC and the CB zone districts. So allowing these micro uses in those zones will effectively allow these types of uses by right without further discretionary processes in the downtown area. And again, this is just a quick table to show where the uses will be permitted. And with that, we would like to recommend that your council approve the first reading of the ordinance. And I'm here for any additional questions, as is Paul Johnson, the principal planner who was working on this ordinance project.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchen. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank the Planning and Development Committee and the city staff for all of their hard work on developing this ordinance. I think it's obviously a great new feature for our downtown. It'll help continue to spur economic growth in our downtown core. And so with that, I would like to approve the staff recommendation.
You have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a few items. I've received several complaints about the speed on Allen Road and some requests to perhaps red light cameras at Palm and Brimhall. I think since the West Side Parkway went in there and it's on-ramp, off-ramp, that we're getting higher speeds there, and if I could get a report on that, that would be great. Thank you, staff, for the trees in between Era Park and Riverwalk Park. It looks wonderful, and I'm sure that all the walkers and bikers in between will appreciate it. And also, thank you for the new paving on the bike path. I did have to take a detour today, but I think it's well worth it. It's great. And last but not least, Ted Wright. Hello, Ted. Wake up. Ted's been with us for 29 years, and I've worked with him most of those years across the counter, and He hasn't always been pleasant to me, but I wish him the best and thank him for his service. Merry Christmas and thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Just wanted to note, I've been receiving a lot of calls regarding homelessness, and the concern just continues to grow throughout our community. So I'd like to ask that we continue our work on homelessness at the council level and follow up with that second workshop that we had intended to conduct, but that we do that first part of next year. I'd also like to thank the mayor for joining me in a ad hoc committee of sorts, joining with some local pastors and as well as leaders in the homeless advocacy groups to address some of the very specific concerns in downtown Bakersfield. So thank you, Mayor Go, for helping us with that effort. And again, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to all.
Thank you. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real short, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and I would like to comment on our first annual Christmas tree lighting at our plaza. It was just a matter of working together, and the tree is absolutely magnificent. City manager, it's all that everybody wanted it to be. It's beautiful, great job, and it was a fun celebration. We had our countdown, and our mayor and our other council member and myself. Oh my gosh, what is your name, young man? Oh gosh, yes, it was great. We had elves there handing out Christmas hats, and Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus was there, arrived in style. The pedicab was the sleigh, and just looking beautiful, handsome couple. And we had a live nativity scene there, courtesy of Canyon Hills Church. And it was well attended. Then we had group Christmas carol singing after the tree lighting. So something that we will look forward to every year. And it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which was an ideal time. I attended my first teddy bear toss at the Condor game, and which I loved. It was just a fun evening. Never seen the arena just almost completely full. The spirits were high. A lot of team spirit there. So it was just a great evening, and I appreciate staff's help on making it as special and as nice as it was. So I also want to, good meeting, Mayor. You flawlessly handled. And I just want to wish everybody a wonderful Christmas, and just keeping in mind the spirit and certainly the reason for the wonderful Christmas season. So wishing everybody also a great 2018, which we have an important part in helping for our city. So I know we all intend to do our part, and wishing everybody a wonderful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Public, thank you so much for your input, staff. I know a lot of hard work has gone into this meeting. Police, thank you so much for your efforts that have resulted in a very, very positive operation, and congratulations to those who were recognized this morning. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. We stand adjourned at 8:08.
3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 City Council meeting of December 13th, 2017. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Rivera.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
To comply with the Brown Act, we'll receive public statements now. Please limit your comments to the workshop and closed session items only at this time. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. Are there any public statements?
Mayor Go, we have received one speaker card. One speaker on a single subject. The first speaker is Terry Maxwell regarding high-speed rail.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Terry Maxwell, and I'm here to talk about, or say a few words about the workshop going on today. I'm a little disappointed that you're doing it at 3:30 and not doing it when it would be available for more of the citizens that live in the Westchester area and the business owners in the downtown could attend, to let this council know exactly how we all feel about it. I can pretty much represent the people in Westchester. We would like to see the station go at Truxton. In other words, the hybrid, not the locally generated. And there are plenty of reasons I know that. I've gone to most of the workshops that have been done out in the community, and I would say that probably 70% of the people that I've talked to are all in agreement that in order to benefit the businesses downtown and to keep the noise to a minimum for the Westchester area and not to have the Westchester area affected by one more thing that's being thrown at them. They already have 24th Street, and they know that if the station goes at F in Golden State, it's going to be an absolute madhouse down there as far as traffic is concerned. It just makes sense, if you've gone to any of the meetings and listened to any of the people that have talked about it, that the Truxton Avenue station makes so much more sense for everyone concerned. So I do want to let you know that. I also want to note that this is a workshop that does have a vote in it. And so I know that last time you had a workshop on the finances for the city, that there was some controversy over whether you could take a vote during a workshop or not. So I just want to make sure that everybody stays in the room and everybody votes on this. So, I know that's really important to everybody. So with that being said, again, I would urge you to really consider looking at the Truxton Avenue station. It makes more sense. And I know that to me, about the only group that is really for the Golden State and F Street station is the city management and some people inside the city. It just doesn't make sense any other way than to put it at Truxton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Under workshops, item A, high-speed rail. Number 1, presentation on the status of the Bakersfield Station area planning effort. Number 2, resolution in support of the locally generated alternative alignment of the Fresno to Bakersfield project selection.
Thank you. Ms. Kitchen?
Thank you, Mayor Go. Good afternoon, members of council. Do we have our presentation working? Oh, good. We weren't sure if we were doing it or not. We had a few technical difficulties. But as indicated in the agenda, I am here this afternoon to give your council an update on the high-speed rail station area planning effort. As you know, back in 2014, the City of Bakersfield reached a settlement agreement with the High-Speed Rail Authority, and the High-Speed Rail agreed to study an alternative alignment known as the locally generated alternative alignment, and they've been pursuing those efforts ever since. The City of Bakersfield also accepted a grant from the High-Speed Rail Authority to prepare a station area plan to make a plan for downtown Bakersfield and how it will look with the addition of a high-speed rail station in the future. Since that time, I've been bringing periodic updates to the council. The last update was in March of 2017. We discussed the draft existing conditions report that had been prepared as a part of the station area plan, as well as an acknowledgement of the fact that in May of 2016, the High-Speed Rail Board Authority came to Bakersfield and held a hearing and deemed the LGA as the recommended preferred alignment for their future study. that alignment does include a station location at F Street. So the city took that direction and moved forward with our station area planning efforts. Back in March, we also discussed the extensive public outreach that has been conducted as a part of this. We've had over 11 workshops, several community meetings, over 150 participants from the public who have come and shared their ideas with us and with our consultants and with the High Speed Rail Authority on how they would like the downtown to develop over time, both with or without a high-speed rail station, depending on how that pans out. Since then, we've been busy. We've been working with the consultant to take all of that public input and start drafting the vision plan. And we have prepared and almost have completed the draft vision plan along with implementation strategies, and we are working on the programmatic environmental document to analyze that vision plan. A couple other notable items have happened since then. In October, the city went to Sacramento to present to the High Speed Rail Board Land Use and Transportation Committee and let them know what we've been working on here and how we've been using that grant for station area planning. And I'm going to share a little bit about that presentation with you tonight and this afternoon so you can see what we showed them. And then in January, we are hoping to bring forward the actual draft plan for public release and review. So to talk a little bit about what was presented in Sacramento, this highlights the topics that we discussed. We wanted to let the High Speed Rail Authority know a little more about Bakersfield and about the city that we believe is truly at the center of that high-speed rail system as it's currently planned. We know, being local, that Bakersfield is at the center of the alignment and that we're very well connected to the rest of the state through interstate connections, both in the north-south with the I-5 and the Highway 99 corridor, and then as well as to the east from State Route 58, and then to the coastal areas through State Route 58, 46, and Highway 166. We also talked about how the city has laid the groundwork for future growth of downtown and revitalization, and what kind of opportunities the locally generated alternative present, as well as the related station location at F Street. We told the board about how Bakersfield is a fast-growing city. It's an important city and one that needs to be acknowledged. We're 150 square miles, as you know. We have over 380,000 residents, and that represents a 40% increase in our population between 2000 and 2010. And then downtown Bakersfield is right at the center of that. The city of Bakersfield is unusual in that our downtown truly is at the heart of our city. A lot of cities see a downtown area at one end or the other, but we're right in the middle. And that represents a great opportunity for downtown to continue forward in revitalization and economic growth that will benefit all regions of our city, to go from the north to the east or from the south to the west or north to the south, anywhere you traverse through downtown. And we wanted to make sure that the High Speed Rail Authority understood that and that the downtown area truly is the best location for a station within our community. We also talked about some of the efforts that are already happening here in Bakersfield organically. We have public investment and we have a lot of private investment. We've had a lot of revitalization. We've showed them the list of some of the new local businesses that have come online just in the last several years. We see a truly kind of organic, grassroots type of growth going on in our downtown area, and that's encouraging. We also talked a little bit about some of the things that the city can offer to incentivize businesses to locate downtown, including our reduced traffic impact fees, our sewer connection fees, reduced parking requirements, proximity to government services, the fact that there is a local group who is pursuing a property-based business improvement district, and more. And then we told them a little bit about how the city has invested in downtown, one through our Mill Creek Improvement Corridor, where we took the canal and revitalized it with a variety of grants to turn it into a true amenity for downtown, a 1.5-mile walking path along the eastern edge of downtown that connects it from the north to the south. Everyone was very impressed by our before and after pictures. You can see the true difference here. And then all of that effort had real tangible results. Along the Mill Creek corridor, there's been over 400 units of housing developed, and those are shown here. And then we talked a little bit about the TRIP program and the benefits that that project has had to the Bakersfield region as a whole, but also to downtown. The TRIP program really improves connections into the downtown from the north, south, east, and west, as you can see here. And then we talked more about how we recognize that if the high-speed rail continues and they actually build a station in the downtown area, we understand what an opportunity that is for economic growth and stimulus in the downtown area. So we explained that the vision area planning process that we've been working on is intended to capture that economic growth potential and also serve as a standalone document that will serve as guidance for redevelopment of our downtown and make sure that it's a guidance and a vision that truly encapsulates what the community has told us. We talked a little bit about step one of our station area planning process, which was to conduct the community outreach that I discussed earlier, how we used that outreach process to identify real goals for downtown. I know Councilmember Gonzalez is very familiar with these goals, as are others of you that have participated in the process. One of those is to increase the population and economic density in our urban core area, and that is one of your council's adopted goals. Next, we talked about step two in the process, which was to really understand ourselves, to do those existing condition reports, to study our parcels in the downtown area. The first was an underutilized parcel analysis. The map on the left there shows the orange parcels, which are underdeveloped. Those typically consist of surface parking lots, vacant lots, or very low-density buildings. And we did notice that around the F Street location that's affiliated with the LGA alignment, there are quite a few underutilized parcels that represent an opportunity for future growth, development, revitalization. We also did an economic analysis. We hired a consultant out of the Los Angeles area to study what high-speed rail will actually tangibly bring to the downtown area in terms of the number of hotel rooms, the potential number of housing units, retail space, offices, etc. We wanted to make sure that our vision was based in reality, that it was truly looking at what the real numbers were and where those numbers could be allocated in our existing infrastructure of downtown. So next, we talked about how we wanted to make sure that the F Street location could integrate well into downtown. As you can see here, it's located near the Kern River on the northwestern portion of our downtown area. And we did, through the study, notice that there are quite a few opportunities for connection and integration into downtown. This is located at the highlight of our grid structure in the downtown area, notably F Street, Chester, H. Great connectivity to all those locations. It's also along the existing Golden State Corridor, and it has proximity to the 34th Street Corridor, which is growing. And so then from there, we developed the three-phase strategy. I will quickly jump through these because I have something exciting to show you. But what these do, these are the planning maps, as I say. They show where the growth is anticipated to go over the next 10 and 20, 30 years based on those square footage requirements that we saw from the economic study. With those maps, we thought that maps are great for planners, they're great for developers, but we wanted something that was tangible and exciting for the community to help them visualize this vision. So our consultant did put together several graphical images as shown here, showing what that development potentially could look like. And this shows some of that green space. We did notice through our existing conditions analysis that with the Mill Creek improvements, the existing Kern River Bike Trail, and the potential LGA alignment that follows the existing transportation lines, there's an opportunity to connect a lot of our existing recreational facilities and parks. And that we also found that the Wall Street corridor, which is shown in that on the southern portion of that map on the left, is one of the only intact alleys within the city area. And the planners working on this kind of identified this as a real potential amenity, a creation of an urban trail type of concept downtown for outdoor recreation, businesses, dining, etc. And so the exciting thing that we developed was a video. The consultant put this together, and this is a graphical image. I don't know, Chris, can we get it to play? We were having some technical difficulties, but I'm hoping it'll play for you. So what this video did is it took those three planning maps for the 10, 20, and 30 years, and it put them into a 3D concept and kind of made them come to life. Here we are. So again, this is the first 10 years, and it focuses on revitalizing the core area. And that's the next 10 years. And then in 20 years, once the station's actually constructed, it's anticipated that growth will follow the Chester Avenue corridor up towards the station location F Street. And then at year 30, it's anticipated that growth will really take off at that point and start to build all around the existing core area, Chester Avenue area, and beyond. So the next step was to put that into a 3D imagery, and that's what this shows here. The green areas show those recreational connections. The yellow is the first 10 years here, and the purple represents buildings that are anticipated to come to life in those areas around the core, in the downtown. And then you'll start to see the development continues along the Mill Creek corridor area. And then in year 20, the blue represents where additional buildings could go. And again, that's that retail, commercial, apartments, housing, additional office space, etc. And you can see that it starts to pop up along the core area, and that's where the improvements and the anticipated business growth will be. It shows how it kind of fits in overall integration into the downtown grid area. And then it shows that location in year 30 of the station and how that's expected to stimulate additional growth. And the pink that you'll see here in a moment is year 30 growth that's anticipated and shown by the economic study. And it really focuses on developing that core area in addition to the area around the station. And that's where the opportunity is for true high-density development. It's all transit-oriented design. And what this vision plan does is it presents an opportunity for the city to give clear direction to the development community that we support this type of use. One of the great things is that our zoning already allows many of these uses, and so this further facilitates that. And here's the best part. We wanted to do a bird's eye view to show what this could really potentially look like. So what we're doing here is we're flying in from the north, and you see the station location there. And the idea here is that we want to convey to the high-speed rail, as they design the station, that we want something that presents a true public realm, an open space, a space for the community, something that integrates into the fabric of our existing downtown area without disrupting it, but instead enhancing it. So this is just an idea of what that could look like. This visualization, we're now heading south down Chester Avenue towards Truxton. And you see that one option is for the integration of additional bike lanes, truly making multimodal transit a reality in the downtown area, biking, walking. And now here's a look at how that could look for that Wall Street corridor. So again, we talked about the open market space, retail, walkable areas. Nick may be a little nervous about that crossing there, but this is a visualization. But again, the idea here is just to give a concept and to show what this could look like. Of course, there would be additional items to consider. We would want to ensure that all of our existing level of services were met for our road and transportation network in the downtown area. But this is a starting point for how we could do that. And here's a visual of what it may look like for someone riding the high-speed rail as they come into Bakersfield from Southern California. We're now heading west. We're going over Highway 178 here. You'll see Chester to your left. And that under the viaduct has been developed with a true green space, amenities, parks, outdoor facilities. So visitors to Bakersfield come in and they see a community that's welcoming, that's green, that's enhanced. And they're coming into a station again that's well integrated into the fabric of our downtown, that's still unique to Bakersfield. And a station that provides concourse, amenities, services, etc., to visitors and residents of Bakersfield alike. These are all things that we want to convey to the high-speed rail that Bakersfield desires and deserves, and that we want to partner with them in designing a station that encapsulates those things. So that's the video. Good. And then the next steps that we will have for the station area planning effort is the final phase, and that will be release of the draft vision plan itself. And as I indicated, we're hoping to get that out in January. We're very close, and that will include a program level environmental impact report as well. The action item for you this afternoon is that in November, the High Speed Rail Authority released their supplemental EIR. And that EIR identified the locally generated alternative as their preferred alignment. That EIR is something that we're still looking at and reviewing at the city level, but overall, it shows that the LGA is the alignment that has the least impacts on our community, as opposed to the hybrid alignment that had previously been adopted in 2014. So at this point, it would be appropriate for council to pass a resolution in support of the high-speed rail, ultimately selecting the locally generated alignment as their alignment for this as they come through Bakersfield. And that is the action for you tonight. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchen. Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Kitchen. I absolutely agree that the locally generated alternative is the best solution for Bakersfield, and staff came up with that some time ago and takes out, many more, I don't remember the number, 100 less houses, 180 less houses, plus the city facilities, plus the impacts to other downtowns are much less with the LGA. So I will make the motion for support of the LGA. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Just a couple of questions. It looks like the benefits of this alignment are accessibility to other transportation, mainly roads, and land, that there is land for new development, much more land than in the original. Can you just very briefly tell me what were the problems with the first alignment, the major problems that made you look for an alternative?
Councilmember Freeman, I believe there were 500 parcels taken out, nearly 200 of which were residential. Major damage to the city's corporation yard, the Arena and Convention Center, the new Mill Creek and housing around Mill Creek, the police maintenance facility for vehicles, damage to Dignity Health, who also filed litigation, as did the county of Kern at that time. The alignment developed by the city's planning office is shorter, straighter, lower in elevation, allows for the train to go faster, and is less costly. And that's, kind of a thumbnail sketch of the major issues.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I would second Councilman Smith's motion.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Those adjectives were very important, Helen. I can't remember exactly. Less disruption, less cost, all of those were very, very important. Ms. Jackie, that was a wonderful presentation. The video is just very interesting to reach out and projected ideas and growth for the next 30 years. I'm wondering if your dialogue could be attached to the video. I would love to have one, and I think it should be on our website. Consider that, because it's fascinating, and it's just fascinating. Good information. Thank you.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Under closed session, item A, conference with legal counsel existing litigation. Number 1, California Water Service Company and City of Bakersfield versus the Dow Chemical Company et al. Number 2, Gary Willis versus City of Bakersfield et al. Number 3, Arturo Gonzalez versus City of Bakersfield. Number 4, Hillary Bajornabo versus City of Bakersfield et al.
Vice Mayor?
Move to adjourn to closed session.
We're adjourned to closed session. Reconvening the 3:30 council meeting. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. On item 4A1, the city attorney was given direction, and on items 4A2, 3, and 4, there's no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you. So the 3:30 meeting stands adjourned at 5:24.